how you doing? Daniel Ruiz Tizon is available for Monday the 15th of June 2020 with me, Daniel Ruiz Tizon, episode 242, sweating the small stuff live on Ramble FM, 10 p.m. UK time. Hope you're all well, keeping on doing what you need to be doing to keep yourself going. I've just been struggling trying to get the show's Facebook page working, and even on the mobile now it's decided not to work. So it's all happening here, live, no margin for error. Up until about 20 seconds before going on air, I was still trying to get that page working, at least on the mobile. Anyway, on tonight's show, I'm talking bucket hats. I interrupt the Space Daddy's lunchtime kebab. There's the Lidhell's Brixton Pistons. They're back in action, impacting on the transportation of my budget breaded fish. There's my weekly Nectar Points update. How close am I now to the magical 500 points mark? And after 3 months of isolating alone, I get my bubble off the ground today. Been a warm day here in South London, more than warm in the morning actually. I managed to get out for a run early by my standards. Normally it's a lunchtime run. Today I think I was out in the park by about 10 a.m, which is early for me. It wasn't a roasting hot day, but it was hot for running. I do tend to, if you're a regular listener, I do tend to moan about the weather about 90% of the time I'm running. It would appear that I can only run when it's run well when it's a very specific kind of weather. Today certainly wasn't it. It wasn't roasting, as I say, but it was hot for running. Last Thursday, actually, that was ideal running weather, really cool. I was able to push myself a bit more as I try to get back to the fitness levels of a month ago. Found myself wearing a makeshift knee support today, which I think helped. It probably put about 20 years on me visually. And it wasn't a proper knee support. I couldn't find my knee support. But I think this thing helped. I did all the stretches before the run and afterwards. But there's definitely a very bad case, a worsening case, I'd say, of runner's knee going on with the left knee. I woke up during the night last night and I had to down a couple of Nurofen and rub the dodgy left knee with some Voltarol. And finally nodded off, I think, after about 20 minutes of that. So the discomfort there is getting to the point where it is waking me up. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. At this late stage of my life, the hypochondriac in me is all but dead, and I'm in no real hurry to get the physio action that I need to. You know, I don't really want to put myself in a clinical setting, but I probably need to spend some more time adding more exercises to the knee. I don't really want to be resting for a couple of weeks because it's hard enough getting to within touching distance of the kind of fitness level I was at maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago. I don't want to have to go through all of this again. I had been tempted to use the knee as an excuse to just stay indoors today and do the usual workout I do from home. I'm not really giving myself any rest days from exercise at the moment, which I ought to. Even Sloth Saturday isn't quite what it was. Let me explain Sloth Saturday if you've not heard of Sloth Saturday before. Sloth Saturday basically is usually my one day of the week where I don't do anything healthy. You know, I don't work out, I don't go for a run, I just go out, get the neighbour's paper, do the housework, a few cat naps here and there, Star Wars football games, and I overeat. I'll have a big lunch of cereal and yogurt. I've had usually toast or crackers in the morning. I think it's crackers because I've got the calzone pizza conversion thing going on in the evening, and that's a lot of bread. I've got my own toppings that I add to that. So it's the one day of the week where discipline goes out the window. I felt so guilty after Saturday night's spectacular calzone conversion, which was back on form after last week's disaster with the Lidl, I'll say it again, with the Lidl thin as a communion wafer pizza base. collapsed on me in the oven, and that was after I made a late switch from the Sainsbury's thin and crispy spicy chicken pizza to the little Cajun chicken because it was 11 minutes in the oven as opposed to the 15 to 17. minutes of the Sainsbury's pizza, and I wanted to eat by 1900 hours. I paid a price for that indecision on my part. And Saturday, back to form with the calzone conversion, but a couple of hours after the calzone, I had a workout, sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups and curls, all motivated purely by the guilt from the one day of the week where I meant to do nothing except overeat. So even on Sloth Saturday, I'm not really allowing myself to just have a very lazy day. 5 minutes past 10, episode 242 of Daniel Ruiz Tizon is available. I just banged the bizarre setup I've got here for the mic. I can't wait to get the equipment that I need because, the Facebook page isn't working. It's not easy setting up this Zoom H1. You can join in via Twitter at 1607 West Egg while we're live on air, even just to say hello, even just to let me know someone is listening live. That's all this needs to be. You start thinking, maybe I'll turn this life around. It's not too late. I can still achieve the things I wanted to achieve. Then you put out a call and response on Twitter and nothing happens. And then you think, maybe I've got this wrong. Maybe I'm not as good at doing what I do as I always thought I was, because this has been going on for a long time. On the running, I did 7K this morning, but the truth is that after 5K, it was a struggle. I think my personal best is about 11K, and I was going out, and every time I was going out for a run, I felt like I had to beat the previous personal best. And then once I was told it shouldn't work like that, I almost mentally downed tools until I've gone back down to, what is it now, 7 today. So I'm trying to bump it up a bit. So I was okay with 7, but after 5K, definitely a struggle today. Mental as much as physical. I think I'd done too much at the start of the run, and there's the uphill chunk of the route which continues to be a killer for me. I think it goes on for about 6 to 8 minutes. Feels like about 20 minutes. And halfway through my first lap this morning, I experienced some more poor social distance running. This time it was a local Rastafarian that I recognised, balding, blitzing past me in just shorts. No trainers, nothing on the feet, topless, so just shorts. There was me in my life-changing running trainers that have transformed my running in the last few months, and this guy was running barefoot. And the obvious hygiene issues aside, which I don't need to state, his speed in that heat, and he might be older than me, was absolutely stunning. I closed the gap to around a dozen metres as I started the climb that kicks in during the second half of my opening lap, and then he dropped out. I wasn't surprised that he dropped out, given the speed he was going at. I kept at it, despite the physical discomfort. Pace-wise, my pace was slower today because of the heat. I was around just over 6k an hour. I'm not a very quick guy, and I've said it before, when I used to go swimming, I'd always think that slowness on land wouldn't necessarily transfer to the water, but it certainly did. I think I'm just slow, full stop. So I was just around 6k an hour pace-wise. This Rastafarian, from what I saw, he must have been going at about 8k minimum. I don't think I've experienced anyone going so fast in my whole year of running, and in this heat too. While I wasn't happy at the social distance infringement as he overtook me, breathing heavily, I was able from behind to just marvel at this outrageous display of speed in bare feet. It was extraordinary. On the second lap, I found myself, I think I was tucked in behind 2 other runners, and the park abuser was there. This is that woman who always wears winter gear. She wears a lot of dark layers. She's got one of those cycling helmets, retro helmets that look like some sort of 60s police officer. She looks like a jockey, in fact, the way she's dressed. And regardless of the weather, all year round, she's in the same heavy winter regalia. She was there today. And I think the only reason maybe that she didn't give me any abuse was maybe because I wasn't wearing my hat and she didn't recognize me without the hat. Or maybe there were just too many runners and she thought, yeah, this might be asking for trouble if I'm inconsistent with the people that I'm abusing. But I did tweak my run on the way back. I just stuck to the other side of the path so I didn't have to deal with her. She tends to park up the bike. Is that what you do with a bike? Do you park it up, or do you just lean it up against a tree? Any cyclists, do let me know what the term for that is. She'll leave her bike against a tree. It's got a big speaker attached to it. She plays music. She dances to the music. She's got a walking stick, which I'm not sure must be fixed to her bike when she cycles in. I'll then hear her cycling, which way? Let me get my bearings right. I'll hear her cycling south in the early evenings, playing that music. It's always her. So she's a real creature of habit. It was good to get the run out of the way. The feeling afterwards makes the pain worth it just about. After a warm down and a shower, walking towards my aunt's, which I'll come to later, my step felt lighter, and that makes it worth it, I suppose. For me, that's a sign that what you've done earlier in the day that you may not have enjoyed, certainly I haven't enjoyed it, but it's actually done you some good. There was a real bounce in my step. I can't see the running ever being something that I'm completely in love with just because it is hard. The start of every run, without fail, probably because I'm in the same park every single run, so there's nothing to surprise me anymore. I know every inch of that park now. I know which part of the route is going to cause me difficulty. I know which part of the route is going to, provide me with a much needed breather. And those first 2 or 3 minutes, the voice in my head is always, oh my God, how can this be so difficult when I'm actually, fit now and I've done this now so many times. I've been doing it for a year. Why is this still so difficult at the start? No matter how many times I start that run, it's always hard. The first few seconds, my attention is focused on trying to get the mobile, which where I've started the Strava app, trying to get the mobile into the internal reverse shorts, the only shorts with a sealable pocket. Once I've done that, once I feel the mobile is secure inside those internal shorts, then the focus switches to the actual running, and I'll realise right away I'm not enjoying this. But, I did it. I got it out of the way, and I'll get it out of the way again on Wednesday or Thursday. I'd say the start is actually harder than that final few 100 metres of a run where on a hot morning like today I might be gassing. Mentally, by that point, I know it's almost over, but to be finding it hard right at the start, mentally, that is a real battle. I'm concerned about the knee too. I'm starting to think about which part of the park am I running on. Should I be running on this path here? Should I go on the grass? What's going to be best for the knee? But, once I get into it, the first 3 or 4 minutes, they're hard. And after that, there's that internal voice that's saying, yeah, I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. I can do this. I put the bins out again today. They weren't as full today. Normally, in recent weeks, they've been filled to the top. I've noticed a flaw in my recycling dispensation. It's been going on for weeks now, and I've become really aware of it because it's the same thing that I keep doing. The 6 pints or the 4 pints of semi-skimmed milk that I'm buying. For some reason, when I stick those bottles in the recycling bag, which we're not actually allowed to stick in the recycling bins in Lambeth. We're not allowed to use recycling bags in the borough, being the case now since 2017. But I carry all the recycling down in this recycling bag. Then I just bin the recycling bag with the old school rubbish that gets binned normally. And the milk bottle labels for the last few weeks are peeling off. They're sticking to the inside of the recycling bags. And then then when I'm out there, I'm struggling to bin the bottle. I'm trying to minimise hand to bin contact. And today was another instance of that milk bottle label sticking to the recycling bag, and I could just feel my jaw setting into a clench. Eventually managed to do it, but I think this week, when I'm finishing the several bottles of semi-skim that I have in the fridge, I think I'm going to be a bit careful with my bottle placement in the recycling bag. I'm going to have a real look at how I'm placing it. Well, if I can remember, otherwise I'm looking at more of these recycling issues. In other news, moving on, my favourite choice of hair clippers finally came back on the market last night for its old reasonable price, which is £102 less than what it was retailing for on Amazon throughout the lockdown, and that's £124 Babyliss clippers. They're still on Amazon. They haven't been taken down despite myself and the manufacturer getting in touch with Amazon. So anyway, the clippers are on their way. I'm pleased that I've been patient, haven't overpaid for them. Unless I bottle out of it by the weekend, I could be looking at my first shaved skull since the mid-noughties, albeit this will be uneven as I'm going to be doing it myself. And I'm going to have to brace myself for the shock of losing all this long hair. It's almost a year since my last haircut. It's unlikely that I'll ever grow my hair this long again. So there's a few milestones there. It's not going to be easy to deal with, and I hope that I don't regret it. You know, we're so deep into the lockdown now that I could have been waiting for the barbers to open. You know, that must be imminent. That must be just a few weeks away. I could have waited. But I just don't want to be taking any chances in these places right now. It goes way beyond the small talk, which is the issue that kept me away from barbers. Started affecting me more when I went to barbers because I just like to sit in that chair, tell them what I need, well, what I want ideally, but leave happy with the haircut. But the small talk, I find it harder now that the barbers are much younger than me. I think when I was younger and the barbers were roughly the same age, it was a bit easier, but not now. I won't be going to the barbers for a while, so I just had to get the clippers. And I'm guessing the first head shave is going to be very erratic until I get better at it. I've tried to visualize what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, tie the hair up at the back to try and tackle the neckline first, which is always well kept anyway, well maintained. But I think you've got to get the neckline right and then work from there. Otherwise, I'm just going to have a very dodgy neckline. Not done this for 30 years, and even then, back then, I was never good at producing fades. I remember my last day at Woolworths in Clapham Junction. I'd done my own hair, and it was moppy on top and shaved at the sides and the back, and everyone was calling me Badger. So it's clear to me back then that I didn't know how to fade. And you see some barbershop videos on Instagram, you see the technique behind the fading. I'm not going to be able to pick that up. That's not a skill that I'm going to be able to grasp. So it's going to be a case of nothing fancy, just lob it all off. It's too uncomfortable at this length, and I think it will be one less worry as we all try to get through this very strange and grim period, and trying to get a headband looking right, well, as right as a headband can look when it was actually a t-shirt once upon a time, or trying to tie the hair back ahead of a run. I don't want to be doing all that, not at this age. I think there's something tragic about it. I've had my time with a mullet. I've had my time with the samurai knot. The latter is a great hairstyle, but it does lead to traction, alopecia, and the Rastafarian guy I saw today, he was balding, and that's because he's a Rastafarian. He's got a lot of hair. You're tying it back, and the hairline's being pulled back all the time. It's just not good for the hair. We're not meant to be pulling our hair back like that. So I don't really want to hang on to the samurai knot, even though it's probably the only acceptable hairstyle that I can manage now. In preparation for this head shaving, I went to Brixton today as I made my way to my aunt's. And I'm currently doing that thing where I have the mask fixed around my ears, tucked under my chin until I join an external shop queue, or, as was the case today, walked through the market. Came up on W.H. Smith's, came up to Brixton Station. W.H. Smith's is there, a couple of doors away, and there was no queue to go in, unlike every other shop, and I was surprised by that, I have to say. And then I went in, and maybe things started to make sense a bit. They had big signs on the shelves advising customers not to browse the mags or papers unless they were buying it, which is, completely understandable. But then again, that has always been a feature possibly the big attraction of going into a WH Smith's, the browsing. And this is another thing we can no longer do. And then just after that, I'd gone into Poundland, and, people were touching things on the shelves. I was touching things on the shelves as I looked at buying a mirror and another notebook. So I was as guilty as everyone else in Poundland, but they didn't have any signs, which maybe they should have. Don't touch something unless you're going to buy it. But I think that would be easier to police somewhere like WH Smith's. Poundland's always a bit chaotic. And the whole non-browsing in WH Smith's is just, it's another one of many hundreds of small things that we can't do that combined make the world a very different place now. WH Smith's didn't actually have the magazine that I was after, and that after I saw they didn't have it, I then went across to Poundland. I queued up, didn't have to wait long. And it's amazing how, I don't know about you, but I've become used to this, just the waiting. Take a book with me. If it's a long queue as it can be to get into the Tesco on a Friday, I've got my book there and I just try and switch off. Whereas, 10, 11 weeks ago when the hoarders were emptying out the shops and you had these really long queues snaking round into residential streets off the high street, I found that really difficult. And I think I'm managing okay with supermarkets. I've got used to the queuing. And for me, it's just a case of only going to the shops when I really need to. So I've gone into Poundland. Didn't have to wait long to get in. Went in, bought a mirror, bought another notebook. Stationery has always been a bit of a therapeutic thing for me. I've got multiple projects coming together. I want my notes to be more organised. They need to be more organised. And the mirror is to use with the clippers. Ideally, I would have got a bigger mirror, but they only had one choice of mirror. And I just need something to use with the clippers so I can see the back of the head when I'm doing it. I did get sent links throughout the weeks of the lockdown for various clippers, but none of them were cordless. I don't mind corded, but cordless. It had to be cordless because, I'm going to be doing it in the bathroom and the power socket in there hasn't worked for a long time. One of many things in the flat that don't work. So, I'm fine with corded, but for me specifically, I needed something that could also work as cordless. Now, given the plan to shave all the hair off, I'd need to protect the skull in this heat. I mean, I was running with some factor 50 today, and that's with the mullet. And I wore a baseball cap, unbranded, to the shops today. But I'm going to need to protect a shaven skull in this heat as we go into the summer. So I wore the very tight baseball cap today, which is, it's a terrible hat. It really is. And it's very uncomfortable and it never fitted me properly. Now, I like to think that the mullet made that so, but it does go beyond the mullet. I am a forceps delivery. So I thought I need to find a suitable summer hat. Winter hats are never a problem. Summer hats always are. And I thought I'm going to have to buy a bucket hat, which, I do think bucket hats scream music festival goer. I've never been to a music festival, but if someone sees me with a bucket hat, I think that guy's too old for the bucket hat. Maybe he's some sort of stoner, always going to music festivals. No one's going to give me the opportunity to explain to them, well, here's the thing, I've never actually been to a music festival. I've got a bucket hat because I find that my choice of summer hats is very limited because I was a forceps delivery. Every summer hat that I get is very tight on the skull. I saw a hat online, a bucket hat, a cheap one, and it wasn't a one-size-fits-all. It was a one-size-fits-most, which is the first time I've seen that. And I thought they'd been clever with that. I was really impressed because I've never bought into the one-size-fits-all thing. Now, this one-size-fits-most, for me, that's more accurate. And, of course, coming into this world via forceps, I'm unlikely to make up part of the most. So I knew when I saw that I needed to keep looking. Extra large size meant that I was limited in terms of colour choice, but I did manage to find a navy one to hide the skull under if I don't bottle the head shaving at the weekend. So hopefully that will arrive here by the weekend. I'm certainly not using those clippers until the hat's here. It is 26 minutes now past 10. It appears tonight that I am talking to myself. Ways to get in touch: Twitter and Instagram, 1607 West Egg. Facebook, the Facebook page, I'll have another try while I'm here, see if I can get it working. It's certainly still not functioning on the laptop. There's nothing I can do about that. It is frustrating. It's making, promoting the show that much harder. But tonight I don't know what's happened here. Actually, I might be able to post this now. Let me see if I can do it. This is promising. So anyway, I'm going to have to be patient. Someone's looking into this. A friend's looking into this for me as a long-term thing. But just tonight, I was trying to post a message that the show was currently streaming live, and I'm doing it now, and I'm going to see if it's going through. You can also email the show, by the way, DRT, available at westegg1607.co.uk. Okay, let's see if that goes through on the phone. I've also, it's gone through. There we go. I'm pleased about that. 25 minutes late. The show is now on YouTube as well. I'm going to try that, seeing as when I put it on Mixcloud, it actually gets no play. So youtube.com/Daniel Ruiz Tizon. I'm sticking the regular Monday Night Live podcast on there. That's youtube.com/Daniel Ruiz Tizon. Subscribe on there. Hit the subscribe button. Won't surprise you to know I've lost a few subscribers. It would be nice to see that channel grow. It'd actually be nice to see anything grow right now apart from the mullet. But the YouTube channel, you might like it. There are over 200 videos on there. So what are you going to lose by clicking the subscribe button there? So you're listening to Daniel Ruiz Tizon is available, episode 242, coming to you live, sweating the small stuff every Monday night at 10 p.m. UK time. If you miss the start of the show, it's going to be available to download for regular listeners from tomorrow morning, or really overnight, but certainly by tomorrow morning. If you're one of the show's Patreon supporters who are supporting this show, who keep this show coming back, you'll be able to, let me just scale back the B's, you'll be able to download this by midnight tonight, just before midnight usually. Then I go to bed with another 2 or 3 coffees swilling around in the system, and I'll be awake until about 4 a.m. But, I don't mind that on a Monday night. And I always tell myself, well, would it be so bad to have a lie-in on a Tuesday morning? Maybe it would be, maybe it wouldn't be. But I'll always be up by 8 in the morning. And it's frustrating because I just wish I didn't feel guilty if I had a lie-in. But physically, I can't do it anyway. I'm rambling now. I am rambling. There is, of course, the Patron page, as I touched on just a few moments ago, patreon.com/DRT available. That's just $7 a month. That is a bargain, whether we're in the middle of a pandemic or not. In any era, that is a bargain. It's a single tier of support. I've kept it simple. So for just $7 a month, you get an extra show every week that comes out on a Thursday. So do please check out that page. 16 supporters on there at the moment who do keep this work coming back. A couple of hygiene fails to report. Both occurred last Friday, the 12th of June. The first one was at 14:31 hours. I was heading out finally to do the afternoon shop. I've come to dread Friday afternoons. I always endeavour to try and do a shop early on Friday, and nearly every week right now I'm failing on that. So I was in the hallway. I told myself, well, look, this is the usual time I leave. It's no bad thing. I put my trainers on, and then I can't remember specifically why it happened. I think there was some issue with the wallet, and I had to go back into the front room. And in doing so, I completely forgot myself, and my trainer came off the hallway shoe removal mat. I stepped on the hallway carpet in my outdoor shoe, something I've not done in years. And having removed the shoe, I then set about balancing myself using the walls to remove the second shoe. I stepped over the approximate patch of carpet I'd stepped on with the shoe. I got the hoover, I hoovered that bit of carpet before recommencing my exit from the flat. And I think it was probably a combination of tiredness and stress behind that, I think. Or I don't know, I'm just increasingly scatty. I spent about 20 minutes today looking for something. Uh, and sometimes I'm looking for my glasses because of the bouffant stroke mullet. I've got the glasses on my head and I can't even feel them through the hair. So I'm looking everywhere for the glasses. I think it's just, I don't know if that's age. I don't know if it's stress or it's a combination of both. Meantime, just 30 minutes later, I was in Brixton for the first of what has proved to be 2 trips in the last few days to Poundland. I put the mask on to walk through the market. I was seeing quite a few market traders masked up, but with their nostrils resting on top of the mask, which, if you ask me, kind of defeats the whole point of masking up. And then as I turned into Electric Avenue, I saw 2 guys exchanging an elbow greeting. And I was taken aback by this. I thought that idea had been quickly discarded back in February or early March when we realised that's not going to solve anything, that would almost be just as dangerous. Even that 39th game, the Premier League's then Supremo Peter Scudamore floated a few years ago, that controversial idea, even that lasted longer than the elbow greeting idea. But here's the thing, I'd never actually seen the elbow greeting live. And to see it live was something. Obviously, I don't think this is something that's widely done. The whole kind of market thing, with the traders not wearing their masks properly, the 2 customers greeting each other with the elbow greeting, walking through there, seeing people standing very close to each other. It was almost as if nothing had happened, nothing had changed in the last 3 months. It was very, very strange. This week's Nectar Points update now. Let me just get my receipts. 3 supermarkets in 2 days. On the Friday, I was queuing up outside the Tesco on Acre Lane, the only place where I can find the Neighbours OK magazine. And I was on the phone to the Space Daddy. He'd answered with what sounded like a mouthful. Now, my sleeping habits are very strange right now, but his nocturnal habits always make mine look normal. And when I heard him answer the phone, I just thought he's probably just got up. He loves sleeping. But lo and behold, he'd just had a meat and chips delivered for lunch. He was stuffing his mouth. So I had to call back 20 minutes later. This guy, no one loves the kebab like him. He really is obsessed with kebabs ever since I've known him. I was 17 when I met him, and the kebab was always his thing. He had an older brother working in the city, and he would tell me, he told me eventually, I think, when I asked how he got into the kebab, that his brother on his Friday nights out would come back, leave a half-eaten kebab in the fridge. My friend, the Space Daddy, would wake up in the morning and open the fridge, see the kebab in there, get increasingly curious about it, and, eventually asked his brother if he was going to finish that. If his brother said no, then he'd heat it up in the microwave, and that was it. His love for the kebab was born and has lasted 3 decades. But a kebab for lunch, that's something else. Now, your day should build up to the kebab. I understand if maybe you've got a kebab the night before, it's a big kebab, you haven't finished it. I understand that. And you might have it for a lighter lunch the next day. But to have it, to order it fresh, and it comes fresh, to order it for lunch, and you're going to eat it for lunch. It's not a lunchtime meal, is it, really? That's a dinner. He never has the pita bread, by the way, and to me personally, that's a big part of the kebab. But to the Space Daddy, it's extraneous. He has no time for the pita bread. He's been doing meat and chips since the mid-90s, and I've noticed over the years it's something that's been rolled out at more kebab houses. More of them offer just the meat and chips deal these days. But the Space Daddy, he never really warmed to the pita bread, and a bit like Law and Order, not bothering with establishing shots, just getting down to the action. That's what the Space Daddy. That's what the Space Daddy does with his kebab. Just wants to get on with the meat and chips. Nothing else. Doesn't need nothing else. The meat and the chips are enough for him. None of this pita bread foreplay. I was actually lucky to find the Neighbours OK magazine this week in Tesco's. They were down to the one copy. Might have been Katie Price on the cover, or that might have been the week before. It is just killing me, though, that I know all these celebrities and all these minor members of the royal family now. I would never have believed that this is what my life would become. And it's a legacy of an arrangement the ex had with a neighbour. And even then, when they were around, it was usually me doing this. Now, for the last couple of years, 4 times a week, that's without the post office errands that I'm also having to run right now. It's something that's exclusively mine. And I'm not saying that these errands are going to shorten my life, but they're certainly not going to add to my life. And I just don't see how this ends. I think it only ends grimly, or with me moving out. Avoided the Saturday cat nap, had no appetite for the bad dreams, so I've been successfully avoiding those for a few weeks now. I get up early on Saturdays, I breakfast, shower, get the neighbour's daily right wing, then I start the cleaning on my return to the flat, keeping myself awake with coffee. And while I miss that going back to bed business, I don't miss the grogginess that follows the catnap, and I certainly don't miss the sadness that sets in for the rest of the day after one of those terrible catnap dreams that always determine my mood, really, for the weekend. Let's get back to the shops. I bought some Tesco crackers after not finding them in Sainsbury's the day before, and they were just 40p, which is 10p cheaper than Sainsbury's. The Tesco's packet boldly proclaims them as being crunchy, and I thought I'll be the judge of that. Now, as a single person, loud food right now isn't a problem for me. My imaginary alter egos aren't going to leave the table if they hear me biting loudly into a crunchy cracker. I also bought a lighter faux butter from Tesco too. A tub of this stuff costs 85p, which I'm really liking. I have to say, I'm really liking. It's like discovering a little-known indie podcast, and it's very easy to spread in the right upper shelf in the fridge now, finally getting to grips with the fridge settings a couple of years later than I should have. In other news, another troubled fish transportation from Lidhell. I was repacking my shopping in there, and once again, this time at the self-checkout queue, the Brixton Pistons were arguing with a customer. The most aggressive of the Pistons, once again, wasn't on self-checkout supervision duty. He was loading up the toiletries shelves. I wonder if that's a management decision, because he's been off the self-checkouts for a few weeks now. Maybe they just thought, yeah, you can't fight every customer that comes in. We need to take him out of this. We need to take him away from the self-checkouts. We just need to give him a lower key role. Just get him at the back of the shop, stacking the shelves, and let's save ourselves some grief. So he was loading up the toiletry shelves, his trousers low, exposing what looked like suspiciously expensive boxers for a man working in a German budget supermarket. Meantime, over at the self-checkout, I didn't catch what the problem was this time, but the piston arguing was the one I'd argued with mask to mask a few weeks ago. And this was the guy who told me, why are you arguing when you're wrong? Which I was, but that was like a red rag to a bull. I wasn't going to back down when someone was telling me I was wrong, even though I was wrong. I think probably the fact that I was wearing the mask meant I wasn't really concerned about blushing, and I just started putting forward a very weak argument at my end. But I just found him very rude, and he was at it again on Friday. In this angry exchange between piston and customer, the customer kept their mask on throughout, very sensible. And I don't know if this piston mask guy thought pulling his mask down might give him an advantage in the arguing, because that's what he did. And just hearing that row as I was trying to pack my bags, I think that did affect my focus. I returned home as usual with one of the budget breaded fish, again broken in half. I would like to get home with 2 complete breaded fish. That's my target for this year. I think if I achieve that this year, 2020 will have been a success under the circumstances. Let's bring you the news that you really want to hear now. Thursday's Sainsbury's trip. Opening balance of 470 nectar points. I bought some facial tissues, now 75p, up 10p on their pre-lockdown price. I can't remember if they're 2-ply or 3-ply. They might be 3-ply. Wouldn't surprise me if they're 2-ply. I'm very frugal with the supermarket shopping. What else did I get? Got a single loose baking potato, 26p. Bought some antibacterial wipes, always keep them topped up. Head and Shoulders shampoo, just the shampoo, none of that 2-in-1 business for me. So, good to get back to the specialist products. Bought another coffee refill, double figures on the glasses of coffee every day. I just cannot get enough of the stuff. I just feel hyper constantly. From 8 in the morning to gone midnight, I'm an absolute caffeine fiend right now. Also got a couple of disappointing looking oranges, single oranges at 28p each. There we go, the sound of South London. Can't get through a single show these days without hearing a police car in the background. That was at 42 minutes past 10. Different times on the mobile, different time on the laptop, different time on the clock. The wall clock, where was I? The coffee. Yeah, just drinking too much coffee. Disappointing looking single oranges. 28p even in Sainsbury's, 35p in Tesco's right now. But the latter, visually anyway, have the clear edge right now. They were priced incorrectly, but I just wanted to get out of the supermarket on Friday. There was no point arguing about 5p. I earned 16 points in Sainsbury's to take me to 486 points. Then I paid for the neighbour's radio times in cash separately, accrued 3 points from that purchase to take me to 489. Remember, in episode 240, I'd had to get the radio times from the Tesco garage the week before last, which had cost me a vital 3 store points. Friday, I also had to return to Sainsbury's again on my way back from Tesco's and the latest Lidhell Pistons drama, as I'd not been able to find any raisins in Lidl's and I hadn't looked in Tesco's. They are 60p dearer in Sainsbury's and Lidl. Sorry, in Sainsbury's and Tesco's. But the raisin is such a crucial part of my lunch that I'm ready to pay whatever I have to if it's not available in Lidl. Actually, that's a lie. I won't pay over £2 for raisins, but I've got a 20p leeway at the moment. I'm ready to go up an extra 20p if I need to. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to go to Sainsbury's. Just clicking here to make sure I'm still broadcasting live. I'm still having mouse problems. I'll go back to that. I mentioned the wireless mouse issue on Thursday's Patron show. Just looking at my levels now on the Audacity, this is such a Philistine recording setup. Really need to address this, which, now I've got the clippers, everything is going to go into sorting out the equipment. There is a very strong plan in place. So I'd gone into Sainsbury's to find the raisins, and I think the breaded budget fish would have been broken by the time I arrived in Sainsbury's. I couldn't see the raisins at first with my OCDs. I happen to have 2 of everything like Noah, so I wasn't going to go home knowing that I just had 1 packet of raisins in the cupboards. I'm kind of like a Noah, but a budget supermarket products collecting Noah rather than one who gets 2 of each animal. And I couldn't see any raisins. I could see currants. And I did give serious consideration to trying currants because I thought, well, if I have a backup to the raisins, which I don't right now, then that wouldn't be such a bad thing. I could get used to the currants, so when I don't find raisins, I've got a backup. And I thought maybe I can check on the mobile while I'm here. find out what the difference is between the raisin and the currant. I had 4 shopping bags and a rucksack on me, and my sensible voice, thankfully, because it's usually quite hard to access, it kicked in and said, look, man, are you seriously going to start searching online in the middle of a store for the differences between the raisin and the currant in a pandemic? Buy something or get out of here, go home. So I didn't do the online search, but I did decide to crouch down, had a rummage behind the currants, which were stocked behind a label for raisins. So I had a root around the back of the shelf, pulled out a packet, and sure enough, there were my raisins. I bought a pack, £1.80, so 60p more than I normally pay in Lidhell, worth of 1 point, which meant that I left Sainsbury's on Friday on 490 points, which is worth £2.45. Ever closer to the magical 500 mark would have been 493 points had I found the Radio Times 2 weeks ago in that store. But, I was telling myself that. I was torturing myself, basically, with those 3 points that I'd lost out on. But eventually, by the time I got to the self-checkout, I'd snapped out of that nectar points navel-gazing. Heading towards the end of the show now, before I leave you other ways to support the show, you can do your Amazon shopping via my website, danielruiztizon.com. Click on the Amazon link on the homepage of danielruiztizon.com. Takes you through to Amazon as normal. Amazon recognizes that you've come through the link on my web page and kicks back a small percentage of your purchases back to my work at no extra cost to you. And if you're enjoying the show, a review on Apple Podcasts would be much appreciated. These are crucial to growing any show, to improving your show's visibility in that celebrity-obsessed Apple Podcast store. So do rate, review, subscribe to the show on Apple Podcast. RT. Actually, that's what the neighbour calls the Radio Times. So every time she sends me a text asking for the RT, my first reaction is she on Twitter? That's a week, 20 seconds of radio. It's done now. It's too late. It's live. What can I do? But yeah, if you can RT or share any links on social media to this show, it all helps. And certainly an RT is just a click of your life. So wrapping up this week's show now with what I think I'm going to call a feel-good item. Certainly the highlight of the last 3 months, I think, the launch of my exclusive pandemic bubble after 3 months of isolating alone, and after clearing it with my cousin's wife, the nurse who gave me the incorrect advice regarding the face masks, which I was wearing the wrong way round for a few weeks until Minty Matt pointed out that I appear to be wearing my mask incorrectly. She usually clears up any of the confusing government guidance for me, and I checked it out with her, and there I was, heading into the start of the week, finally poised to have human contact, ready to launch my own bubble. For 3 months, okay? For 3 months, all I've done is exchange the most basic of small talk with a newsagent like small talk, and his co-manager now like small talk, and to have some proper interaction. It was a big moment. I called my aunt after getting home from my run and made sure her and my uncle were okay with my going round. And I wore, the tight baseball cap there, went gloved up in the left glove only to convey an air of intrigue. No social distancing markings inside either of the lifts, which concerned me. I was lucky not to run into anyone in the lifts, but that would bother me now that I know that's the situation there, because my cousin had said during the lockdown when he was going, they had put social distancing signs and markings inside the lifts. And I'd gone into the lockdown on the cusp of a mullet. It was going to happen within a week or two, but I was just on the cusp as we went into lockdown. This is now what I've got. It is the other side of the mullet. And I was surprised that as I went into my aunt's block with a mullet, with a baseball cap, masked up, one glove, that the concierge still picked me out in what is a tower block not short of white middle-aged men with badly dated hairstyles. He just acted like it was normal that he'd been able to identify me. So that was disappointing. If I wasn't so strung out on pills, I think that I'd have been nervous with excitement, because I haven't gone this long ever without seeing my aunt and uncle, and this has been now at their time of life. It's been precious time lost, a time during which my uncle has had life-saving surgery after making what he was certain were final phone calls to all of us from the hospital back in late March or early April. And, my aunt had had to spend almost a month alone making the difficult decision not to perm her hair for the first time since 1979. Well, I suppose it wasn't difficult because she had no choice. She couldn't, the hairdresser that comes to her flat at the weekends could no longer come either. So the hairdresser herself, she has a perm. I wonder who's doing her perm. Maybe can she perm her own hair? Is that something you can do? But my aunt, the perm has gone for her finally after 40 years. So there was me with the mullet. There she was at the door. The door to her flat was open. She was standing at the door, her faded Union Jack T-shirt on. She had her hair no longer coloured, no longer perm, pure white, which actually suited her. It actually gave her face a bit more colour. I thought she looked well. She looked better, much better than I thought she'd look. And I stepped inside. I removed my mask. I wasn't sure what would happen next. I knew what I wanted to happen, but I didn't want to lead on it. I mean, if my aunt and uncle suddenly pass away this week, there's going to be fingers pointing at me. So I was very wary that this bubble, we don't know really whether these bubbles work or whether they might be deadly. We don't know that right now. This is all new. And so I was wary of this. But my aunt then gave me probably the tightest, longest hug I've had in years. And I think we both needed it. My first human contact since early March. It felt weird, but it felt wonderful. We broke off from the hug before another hug quickly followed, a tight hug. And my aunt got a bit emotional. My uncle was quite blasé about it all. He came in from the balcony, and my aunt then snapped out of her melancholy. "Look at the state of your uncle," she said right away as soon as he appeared. "Look how fat he's got." And it is true. My uncle looked like he was wearing a fat suit today, and I can't ever recall seeing him like this, but it was preferable to the picture of the very underweight and gaunt-looking man who returned home from a month-long stay in hospital back in April. But it did take some adjusting, and my aunt continued to dig him out. "You can't put your teeth in for visitors." "He's my nephew," said my uncle. "He's seen worse." It was good to see them both. It was good to see them rowing again. Things felt like they were back to normal there, when of course we're a long way from normal. I put the kettle on. I barely sat down when my aunt had me writing out a birthday card for one of her grandchildren. As I was writing the card, another argument broke out, this time over my uncle stinking out their kitchen with some squid that he'd fried yesterday. He's got a little mullet of his own forming, actually, and I told him that I'd bought clippers in the morning. I'm waiting for them to be delivered, but I could do his hair, and he wagged his finger at me. I think he's looking to use this period to grow his own mullet now. I think he's curious about how long he might be able to grow his hair. And I stayed for about an hour. It was good. I needed it. I think my aunt needed it. I've now got my bubble off the ground, no jeopardising it with unnecessary bus trips. So I'd walk there, I'd walk back to the flat. I told my aunt I can go to the shops for them now. "Don't worry," she said. "Your uncle can go. He needs to lose that weight." So good to see these two back to form, these Stockwell Costanzas. The rest of the week for me, Tuesday, tomorrow. Well, today, by the time you're listening to this, because I don't think anybody's caught the show live tonight. And the rest of the week, I've committed to, well, what am I saying here? This is a very bad 5 or 6 seconds of audio. Tuesday, that's my big writing day. Looking forward to that. I need to sort out a trip to the cemetery to clean my mum's stone because no one's been able to go during the lockdown, but it's now reopened. I'd tweeted the cemetery as to whether they were open. I think I tweeted them on Thursday or Friday because I couldn't find the info on their site. They kindly tweeted back telling me that I could go now. Hi, thanks for the message. The bereavement services team, in brackets, who are responsible for the management of the cemetery, advise caution, but people can visit. Please note that the toilets are not open other than for funeral services. And while I appreciated the tweet, I thought the toilet info was unnecessary, especially on such a public forum. And I tweeted them back, pointing out that in 20 years of visiting their cemetery, I'd never used the loos there. I didn't even know they had any. That's the absolute truth. I didn't know they had any. I'm not sure who would go to a cemetery and use loos there. Maybe that's the thing. I've never seen any loos there. And I tweeted them back and just said it's important to me that both you and Twitter know this after I set them straight on that information. So I'm going to say goodbye now until Thursday. It's 57 minutes past 10. It is tough times right now, but I'm keeping on doing what I need to be doing to keep myself going, and I hope that you are too, because it is all we can do. And if you've been isolating alone, I hope that you too have been able to get your own bubble off the ground this week. And I definitely needed the bubble. I'm feeling a bit more normal this evening. Of course, the situation is far from normal, but I needed this. So, I appreciate the bubble. Hopefully the bubble is the correct guidance and there won't be any severe repercussions as the nation starts, creating millions of bubbles. And that is it. That is the live show this week. As I say, every Monday night, if you've got any feedback on the show, technical feedback for me to take to Ramble, do drop me an email or a DM on Twitter. It's all useful for them and for me. DRT available at 1607westegg.co.uk and on Twitter at 1607 Westegg. Patreon supporters, if you missed the start of this live episode, it's going to be available before midnight tonight at patreon.com/DRT available, and regular listeners will be able to download the show from everywhere from early tomorrow morning. Also on Thursday, don't forget, Patreon listeners get their weekly bonus episode. It's episode 243 out on Thursday. If you want to join them, patreon.com/DRT available. Thank you guys for listening. If you're not joining us on Thursday, I'm back next Monday live on Ramble FM, 10 p.m. UK time. Get those shoulders back. Keep on walking towards the sun. Keep washing those hands. No one told you to stop washing those hands. Keep washing those hands. I'm Daniel Ruiz Tizon, and this week I have been available.